whole thing, so I had to like start it all over. I'm a willing participant. Let's So the question was, I ended up missing it because of the phone call.
Yeah. According to the mainstream heliocentric model, did Michelson Morley debunk the ether?
Yes.
Okay. And to be specific, it would have debunked a stationary ether.
Yeah.
Yeah, just so you guys know
Yeah.
the nuance. Yeah, like kind of like Jesse said, oh, well, the ether could be moving with the Earth or something. That wouldn't actually work for many reasons, because it would have to be rotating with the Earth and tilted wobbling with the Earth, 4 different wobbles at the same time while it revolves with the Earth, while that goes through the galaxy. And obviously, a background medium called an ether cannot move in all those vectors at the same time. That doesn't even make sense.
No, that doesn't make sense. That's preposterous.
Yeah, so from a heliocentric paradigm, you would have to say that it debunks ether. So next question is all that is needed to explain Michelson-Morley from within a heliocentric framework the removal of an ether? So to put that as simple as possible.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, there you go. That is what they normally say. Now, I'll just go ahead and tell you that that's not the right answer, but we're going to get into why. So I actually am glad you said yes. Okay. Because we're going to use this as an example. So we got no.
Yeah, I don't agree with that one too.
Yeah, but
they had to remove the ether to save the heliocentric model.
That's correct. But
so that's why it's yes.
Yeah, well, no, but the question is specifically, is that all that's needed to explain Michelson-Morley? Because that's what people claim, right? They say, oh, well, when they had to remove the ether to save the heliocentric model, and that's all they had to do. But actually, that is not all they had to do, right? Einstein had to come in and change all of physics. They couldn't just remove the ether, right? It was way more of a big deal than that. But for intents and purposes, let's stick with your first answer so that we can go through the process of how it normally would go with most of these Globers for about 7 years now. And this is actually beautiful. We're seeing the changing of the tide, and all of a sudden we're seeing these veteran Globers start to change their argument that they've been saying for 7 years. And that's kind of my point is, after this specific approach is implemented, there's no going back. All right. So the next question is, can we use an interferometer to detect the motion of an object moving in a curved path?
Yes.
Correct. Like the Sagnac effect, or what we use ring laser gyroscopes for. Of course, the globe model claims that we do that to detect the rotation of the Earth. In fact, for years, we've been told that's one of the primary evidences or proofs that the Earth is rotating, is that the ring laser detects its rotation by using an interferometer and the Sagnac effect to detect the object moving in a curved path. So, yes, that's the correct answer. Okay, can this be done without an ether? It's kind of a trick question, honestly. Yo, I know, like Shane and Alan and Toby, you guys know this is low key an unintentional trick question.
Can I respond to
that? Yes.
Well, if it can be done without ether, then it can be done without ether. If it can't be done without ether, then it can't be done without ether.
Okay, thank you for your non-answer, Jesse, man. Like, I don't... What are you doing, bro?
No, the point I'm making is that it can be done. If it needs ether, then we know that ether exists. If it's doing it without ether, then we know that it doesn't need ether.
Jesse, will you just take a stance, please, dude?
It's just weird. Right. It's almost impressive.
So can it be done without an ether is what the question is.
Yeah.
I need to be slightly more familiar with the gyroscope. I'm gonna say no.
Okay. The reason I say it's kind of a trick question is because I would also say no, but for different reasons, right? It's because if the Earth's not moving, then what are we detecting, right? And
I would think it could be done without an ether.
You would certainly think you guys would say that without any hesitation, because your model claims that there is no ether. Within your model, that ether cannot exist. And you guys also claim that we detect the rotation of the Earth with a gyroscope, which means for a heliocentric proponent, you would have to say yes. You would have to say, can we use an interferometer to detect the motion of an object moving in a curved path? Yes, we do that with ring laser gyros. It supposedly detects the rotation of the Earth. Can that be done without an ether? You would say, yes, of course. Because from my paradigm, the ether was debunked, right? There is no ether. Of course, it's going to be done because it's done every day. It's done all the time. Okay, so an interferometer can detect the motion of an object in a curved path without an ether. It doesn't matter if with or without an ether, the interferometer can detect that object moving in a curved path. Okay. Let's move to the next page. All right. Is the Earth moving in a curved path around the sun? Now, to clarify, obviously, I'm asking someone who is coming from a heliocentric perspective. So I know you said you're on the fence.
Didn't he say something like it's falling or some crap like that? Like it's falling around the sun in a curved path? It's falling in a straight line in a curved path or some weird something like that.
Yes, but this is why this is also a trick question. Let me. What are we detecting, right? And
so can it be done without an ether? Is what the question is.
Yeah.
Say no.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even mean to make them trick questions, to be honest. They just kind of have these side little benefits of being trick questions. But so, yeah, you're right. Einstein came up with the new idea of how the orbit works, right? Now, so the answer is still yes, right? But for the current model and relativity, it requires like a nuanced explanation, right? Which would be like, well, no, not from the Earth, but yes, from a different reference frame outside the Earth. So the current model claims the Earth is curving, but not curving.
So how did they prove
that? That's the $1 million question, my brother. But let's just hold off on that one. So the point is that in the heliocentric model, yes, the Earth is moving in a curved path, right? Because it's curving, okay. It's orbiting around the sun. So it has to be curving. Yeah, exactly. If an object's going around something else, it's curving. And that nuance we'll get into in just a second, right? But okay, so the answer is yes.
Maybe it's doing a perfect square. No, just kidding.
Okay. Touche. So then the next question is, can interferometry be used to detect an object moving in a curved path with or without the ether? Now that may sound redundant because it is, and it's because you literally have to sneak it back in there to make sure we're still on the same page in real life application. What I've learned is that when you do this in real life with people that are very zealous for the globe, we'll say, you have to remind them of their previous answer at this point. So, Jesse, you were going to say something. The question is, can interferometry be used to detect an object moving in a curved path with or without an ether?
With or without. In other words, either way. Or
yeah.
Well, it can be used to detect the angular motion of an object, but it does not have to be moving along a path, and moving along a path does not change whether or not it's detecting the angular. If it's turning at 15 degrees an hour, it'll measure 15 degrees an hour whether it's sitting still and turning or moving along a curved path and turning at 15
Does the question say that it can only happen if it's moving on a path, Jesse?
Well, that was my answer.
Does the question say that?
Well, it mentions a path, so it's kind of ambiguous. And so I just wanted to point out it would measure the angular component, but not the tangential component.
Oh, you wanted to just point out a non sequitur to, again, not answer the question in good faith, even though it's a very simple binary question. That's the translation of what you
wanted to point out that you didn't want to answer the question.
Yeah, exactly. So it says, can interferometry be used to detect an object moving in a curved path with or without an ether? So it's giving you a specific example of an object that is moving in a curved path. So to say, well, it can also detect something that's not. That's just literally not relevant. It's just sophistry. It's just sophistry. I don't need your input. Thank you, Jesse. So the answer is yes. And of course, it's painful that we're even having issue with it because, like I said, this is just a repeat of the question that we just asked, right? Which is, can we use an interferometer to detect the motion of an object moving in a curved path, like the Sagnac effect, which the globe proponents claim is used to detect the rotation of the globe with ring laser gyros? And then we said, can this be done without an ether? And the person said, yes, of course, we do it every day. That's what the heliocentric proponent would have to say. I then flip the page here, ask one more question in between. Is the Earth moving in a curved path around the sun? The answer is yes. You could be like, yes, but no, it's moving in a curved path, but it's not, or whatever. And then I just asked the combination of the previous two questions at that point, which is, can interferometry be used to detect an object moving in a curved path with or without an ether? And the answer has to be yes. Okay. You guys see
that
how
makes sense. I see what you're,
yeah,
I see exactly what you did. That makes complete sense.
Yeah,
Well,
you guys
we're selectively using it prior to now is all. Like now they're not doing that for some. But
because if you say no to that last question, then it's like, well, then how did you know that the Earth is curving around the sun?
Called selective.
You know?
You guys see how I had to make it this way?
That was brilliant, man.
I had to.
Very good.
They
They always try to worm out.
It's crazy, yeah. What's up?
Can you
We
hear
hear
him?
you, Eggs.
Oh, is Eggs talking?
Eggs is talking and we can hear him, but you can't. Did
Yeah,
you turn him
move
down?
Oh, okay. I get it now. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I've been trying to talk for ages. You were talking over me. I was
I'm
like,
sorry.
"You keep
I
asking for
accidentally.
the answer."
I went to
Right.
server unmute you, and I guess
Once
yeah, you were muted on my personal end somehow.
That's what I said. I said he's muted me locally. But then once I realized it was a problem, wasn't bothered anymore. I think it's the question to me. I can see how I could measure rotation. I don't see how I could measure displacement. And a curved path is both of those things. It's like rotated and displaced sideways as well. And I don't know. I think I could use interferometry to detect acceleration. I'm confident I could use it to detect rotation, but absolute displacement, how much distance in fixed ether space to move from here to there, that's a question. Because ether, if it's fixed, has dimensions that are spatial, right? And I don't think I can use that. So you're saying, can I measure a curved path? I think I could measure that I curved, right? So that there would be a acceleration upon me. And I think I could quite well curve in flight as well. So I could probably measure a rotation. And I could measure if I sped up or slowed down in that thing, or all of them would be acceleration. But if I didn't know my starting speed, I don't think I would know how far I went. And if ether, given what I've learned mostly from you, then I should be able to detect how far past from when I switched it on to switched it off, whether it was on a plane or on a train or on a car on the ground. Get what I mean?
Yeah, bro. You are both doing the same thing, which is just like trying to make your own side points that don't answer the question, right?
What does he?
Sorry, I was trying to answer the question. Would you be able to measure moving in a curved path? And I think these are the things I could measure. This is the thing I think I couldn't. Can we discuss it? Can we discuss whether you would measure displacement?
Yes, that's actually
Cool,
what
let's
we're
do it.
doing with interferometry, right? We're detecting
Are
the
we?
displacement. Yes, absolutely.
Absolute displacement or relative displacement? So
That is a whole nother discussion about relativity, which we will get to when we get down to the bottom. But the question is simple, right? If the answer is not yes to this, then the globe earther could not claim that the ring laser gyro is detecting the rotation of the Earth.
Sure. Can the question be broken? Could it be a broken question?
No, it's not. No.
Okay.
I just it's simple. Like, can an interferometer be used to detect the motion of an object in a curved path? The answer has to be yes. That's the definition of a Sagnac effect.
I've given my answer, which is I think there are some things you could measure. My challenge for you is I do not think that you could measure absolute displacement, which is necessitated by ether.
Okay, dude.
That's the difference between them.
Dude.
Unless the ether is moving, though, right?
No, dude.
But then it would have to be moving with
you. See, they're only just
on you as an individual.
Just to the audience, so you guys can see what it is. It's only they need to make the conversation convoluted, right? Like, and it's very telling. Why? Because we're almost to the end of it, and they're kind of freaking out. And like, if you see how I made the, I
feel like I'm talking about what we're talking about. I feel like I'm trying to stay on the point of did the Milton Michelson Migglebosch experiment detect the orbit of the Earth because it should have got something going forwards?
No, you're trying to have your own meta interpretation of the conversation, but what we're doing right now before that is just going through the questions, right? Because the questions are going to save us time because of the tactics and misunderstandings that the globe earthers have due to the indoctrination and propaganda around this test and all the talking points that you guys have been repeating for years, right? Sure. So to save us time, if I had just jumped on and been like, does Michelson Morley debunk the orbit of the Earth? It would have been a you-know-what. So I'm not going to guess. It would have just been ridiculous. Why are we having the discussion,
though? Why are we doing this instead of discussing whether you can measure absolute displacement? Like, I can use light to measure the size of a room because it bounces there and back, and we use this speed of light to go, how long did that take? And that works pretty well. If you can measure absolute displacement, there should be a device like that, right? If you can measure movement in absolute space, such that it debunked that we are moving through space as we would in an orbit. If it's able to do that and it proved that that wasn't happening, show me the device that measures absolute displacement. Because you
Eggshells, this is your last warning. If you think you're going to come on the show and just forcibly make me skip over the questions in the format of the show by giving me your point you want to talk about before we get through them, I'm going to have to mute you. I don't want to do that. I just want to get through the questions so the audience can learn. You guys are clearly dead set on making sure that they can't learn because you have to throw in 50 other side points, make sure that it's really watered down, convoluted nonsense so no one can follow the logical.
It made sense.
Dude, stop. There's a logical, sequential order to the questions for a very specific reason so that we can all be on the same page via the Socratic method. You guys are introducing non sequiturs.
The Socratic method is to challenge your own thoughts and have somebody pull them apart and tell you what's wrong with them. Just interrupting me to say, no, we're going to ask the questions again when I'm trying to...
Okay, he's muted. I mean,
so...
It is what it is.
No, it's all right. I think I like the way you did these questions, though, because when you answer yes on that last one, it makes it so it's not exclusive. So it could be either or.
Do you know why?
So they can't... Yeah, that makes sense. I see why. I see what...
Yeah.
And I see why you're trying to keep everybody on that same page so people are following, like, hey, they're claiming this as exclusive evidence, but here you just agreed to this, that it could be either or.
There you go.
Yeah, and there's more to it. Like, the reason it's frustrating because it's like now I feel the need to go back through it to make sure everyone still has it.
Please don't.
I know, but you see why I'm getting frustrated. I'm just explaining to the audience.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that everyone's following through with it so that they can follow the logical steps to the conclusion. And I just want to reiterate this. Anyone that participates in a conversation or debate, if they can't operate in good faith, I mean, why not? So
yeah. I completely agree. Like when a question's asked and it's an obvious yes or no question, and then you're getting this long, drowned out answer, that drives me absolutely insane. Listen to the question, just answer the question. That's all you're asking.
Exactly. So we're gonna continue on. So
all right, I'll help you out as best I can.
Yeah, cool. It's just like, so can we use interferometry to detect the motion of objects moving in a curve?
It's not a question that has a logical fallacy. That's the point. It's a logical question. Nobody's saying, have you stopped beating your wife? Yes or no.
Yeah, exactly. It's not even loaded.
If you think that it is, you're wrong.
Exactly. It's not a loaded question at all. Okay,
No.
so is the Earth moving in a curved path around the sun? Yes. According to them, of
Yes.
course. Yeah. Can interferometry be used to detect an object moving in a curved path with or without an ether? Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Only to detect the angular component of that.
Thank you. Okay. So, yes, we can use an interferometer to detect an object moving in a curved path. Okay.
Not the movement along the path, only the rotation caused by the movement along the path.
He can't help it. I think you're like a CIA agent or something. If you're not, you might as well be, right? It's like you have no shame whatsoever. It must be the anonymity. I don't know. Okay. Did the interferometer in Michelson-Morley detect... Oh, wait. Yeah. Did the interferometer in Michelson-Morley detect the assumed orbit of Earth?
No, that was
not
the
even
problem.
a Sagnac interferometer, is it?
Okay, Jesse, how about if you're not going to answer the question, then don't say anything. How about that?
Okay, it did not and it should not have.
Jeez Louise, man. It's like just a joke, honestly. Oh, man. And that's why I said I'm doing this right now, and I'm not going to obviously have this conversation with Jesse in the future anymore. Like, that's why I'm doing the stream. You guys can see what I deal with for you guys. Don't say I don't love you guys, because the reason I engage so much is I do kind of enjoy it, but also I try to figure out the best way to formulate arguments to help wake other people up, and what it requires is dealing with stuff like this. It's wild. So, did the interferometer in Michelson-Morley detect the assumed orbit of the Earth? The answer is no, from all sides.
No.
Now, Jesse wanted to throw in there to confuse you guys. Oh, but it shouldn't have. Well, we'll see about that, won't we? Okay.
Why should it have?
Well, I'll happily get to that point if we can actually get through the questions, which I thought would take maybe 5 minutes, and then we would be pulling up the actual papers and the test. But no. We can't do that. You guys have to stay away from logical conclusions and intellectual honesty. So, did the interferometer Michelson-Morley detect the assumed orbit of the Earth? And the answer is no. Now, sure enough, the modern claim is that it shouldn't. And Jesse wanted to make sure you guys all knew that, which I explained in the presentation before we opened it up. 4 times. In 4 different ways. Okay. So, anyway, would removing the ether alone explain the results of Michelson-Morley?
I don't think so.
Right. The answer is no. It's no. Because why? Because if you follow it, which is why I hate it, it didn't go smoothly, because everyone would understand immediately why that question's important. Now it seems like it's almost out of left field in a way, but it's because we just now covered, right? To go back through it very quickly, it's like, okay, they say that the Michelson-Morley just disproved the ether. It had nothing to do with the motion of the Earth. They were just trying to detect the ether, right? And that it proved that there is no ether. It just disproved it. That's all that it did. And that relativity had nothing to do with Michelson-Morley. I mean, FTFE, MC Toon, and all the people that religiously repeat them have been saying that to me for 3 straight years. Michelson-Morley has nothing to do with relativity, quote unquote, right? Even though Einstein said if Michelson-Morley had not brought us into great embarrassment, then no one would have even considered relativity for a halfway redemption. But anyway, so then you say, okay, well, do you agree that we can detect the motion of an object in a curved path with an interferometer? Yes. Like the Sagnac effect, right? We claim it detects rotation of the Earth. We do it every day. Like, okay, so you agree that you could detect the motion of an object moving in a curved path or rotating without an ether? Well, yeah, of course, because we don't believe in an ether. We claim that Michelson-Morley disproved the ether, and we claim that we're detecting the rotation of the Earth with that very exact methodology. Okay, so then if we go back and we say, is the Earth moving in a curved path around the sun? The answer is yes. And then I say, okay, again, can interferometry be used to detect an object moving in a curved path? Yes. Even without an ether? Yes. Okay, did the interferometer in Michelson-Morley detect the assumed orbit of the Earth? No. Okay, so then would removing the ether alone explain the results of Michelson-Morley? No, because we just established that it can detect the motion of an object in a curved path even without the ether. So just getting rid of the ether wouldn't explain why it didn't detect the motion of the Earth, the assumed orbit of the Earth, right? So it's screenshot. You can screenshot them. I'll pop them up in a second without the QR code. Let me actually hide it. You guys can take screenshots of the questions. So, and then now what that brings us to is, did Michelson-Morley debunk Newtonian mechanics? Now, this is the important part. No. Wait, which one? You said both.
Oh, sorry. I wasn't sure. I thought he did, but I guess not.
No, he did. So, and Michelson-Morley's 2 people, but it did. Now, this is the major sticking point here, right? This is the thing that we've had the Globers fighting us so hard on. Hey, Shane, have you heard any Globe Earthers like freaking out and denying this question?
Yes, I have.
Nice. Okay, making sure I'm not crazy. Yeah, like pretty much all of them incessantly. Yeah,
all the time until you started doing this, which is probably unrelated.
Yeah, just a coincidence. Yeah. So, the answer is yes, and this goes into what Jesse was trying to say, which is it shouldn't have detected it. Right now, one part that they're not going to be able to defend is that if Newtonian mechanics is true and it causes the orbit of the Earth, then it wouldn't have detected the orbit in Michelson-Morley. And they may basically say that. Would that surprise me? Of course not. But it's just a basic understanding, right, of Newtonian mechanics. That's all it requires to understand why. Because, again, Newtonian mechanics says that an object will continue in a straight path unless an outside force acts upon it, and that gravity is a force, and that the gravity from the sun, being a force, acts upon the Earth and effectively pulls the Earth out of its straight path, like its tendency to go on a straight path, and causes it to start curving around the sun. So Newtonian mechanics claims that an actual force is acting on the Earth coming from the sun. That's gravity pulling the Earth around the sun in a curved path because that force pulled it from the straight path. Therefore, if you're on the Earth, you would be moving in a curved path around the sun because gravity is pulling you in towards it as an actual force. And then you would be able to detect that motion because you're moving in a curved path. It would be the same exact thing as detecting rotation, right? There's a slight difference. The main difference being that, of course, the claimed rotation of a globe is 15 degrees per hour. And then the claimed rotation around the sun of the Earth's orbit is almost just it's just over 1 degree a day. That's because, of course, a circle has 360 degrees. There's 365 days in a year. And so that's just over a degree a day. So right at around a degree a day, that's much slower than 15 degrees per hour, right? But the interferometer was over 10 times more sensitive than it needed to be to detect that motion. So it could detect over 10 times more sensitive than 1 degree per day. And we will pull up Einstein in a second, explaining that in detail, why it should have been decisive, right? Okay, so that means when Michelson-Morley didn't detect the orbit of the Earth, immediately it debunked Newtonian mechanics, right? So if you wanted to keep the orbit, you had to get rid of Newtonian mechanics, and you have to get rid of the ether. Now, ironically, it didn't technically, in and of itself, debunk Newtonian mechanics if you adopted the position that the Earth is stationary. Okay? So hopefully everyone's following that. Ironically, right? So.
Yeah, then they're going to have to put in something else, though, right?
Yes, exactly. So
okay.
And that kind of explains why the question is, over here is, can is all that is the second question is all that is needed to explain Michelson-Morley from within a heliocentric framework the removal of an ether? Well, the answer is no, because there's also the removal of Newtonian mechanics and its replacement. Because obviously you need some type of dynamic claim, a mechanical claim, right? A mechanism to cause the Earth to supposedly move around the sun, right? And so since you're getting rid of Newton, you're going to have to replace him. That's where Einstein came in. That was relativity. Now, what did relativity say? Let me come over here so it's not just you guys staring at this thing. We're almost done. What did relativity say in response to Michelson-Morley to replace? Where are we at here?
Man.
Okay, sorry, I had to find the camera. I'm frozen. What did Einstein say to fix the situation? Well, Einstein said that the Earth is actually free falling in a linear path. And because it has a linear speed, right? And on the Earth, it's just going straight. It's free falling, right? Then you won't detect it with the interferometer because there's not an actual force acting on the Earth. It's not physically pulling it around the sun from the Earth. There is no actual force pulling us in a curved path. We're actually just free falling without a force acting upon us in a straight path. Therefore, the interferometer could not detect it. Okay? So now that's even more details than that. You have contraction and many other things, and we'll get into that in a second. I guess it's going to be kind of a late stream. And so then the last question here, knowing that Einstein had to replace Newton for this to be explained, is if relativity is required to explain Michelson-Morley by explaining that the orbit of the Earth cannot be detected, would a consistent detection of motion falsify heliocentrism?
I would say no.
Go ahead.
Do that question the very end of it one more time.
If relativity is required to explain Michelson-Morley by explaining that the orbit of the Earth cannot be detected, would a consistent detection of motion falsify heliocentrism?
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
Wow.
Well, no, wouldn't it just falsify the guy that said it was undetectable?
Well, no, because he's saying that it's going in a straight path and it can't be detected. So if you could consistently detect it, then
degrees. There's 365 days per hour. And then the claimed rotation around the sun of the Earth's orbit is almost just it's just over 1 degree a day. That's because, of course, a circle has 360 degrees. There's 365 days in a year. And so that's just over a degree a day. So right at around a degree a day, that's much slower than 15 degrees per hour, right? But the interferometer was over 10 times more sensitive than it needed to be to detect that motion. So it could detect over 10 times more sensitive than 1 degree per day. And we will pull up Einstein in a second, explaining that in detail, why it should have been decisive, right? Okay, so that means when Michelson-Morley didn't detect the orbit of the Earth, immediately it debunks Newtonian mechanics, right? So if you wanted to keep the orbit, you had to get rid of Newtonian mechanics, and you have to get rid of the ether. Now, ironically, it didn't technically, in and of itself, debunk Newtonian mechanics if you adopted the position that the Earth is stationary. Okay? So hopefully everyone's following that. Ironically, right? So.
Yeah, then they're going to have to put in something else, though, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And that kind of explains why the question is, over here is, the second question, is all that is needed to explain Michelson-Morley from within a heliocentric framework the removal of an ether? Well, the answer is no, because there's also the removal of Newtonian mechanics and its replacement. Because obviously you need some type of dynamic claim, a mechanical claim, right? A mechanism to cause the Earth to supposedly move around the sun, right? And so since you're getting rid of Newton, you're going to have to replace him. That's where Einstein came in. That was relativity. Now, what did relativity say? Let me come over here so it's not just you guys staring at this thing. We're almost done. What did relativity say in response to Michelson-Morley to replace? Where are we at here?
Man.
Okay, sorry, I had to find the camera. I'm frozen. What did Einstein say to fix the situation? Well, Einstein said that the Earth is actually free falling in a linear path. And because it has a linear speed, right? And on the Earth, it's just going straight. It's free falling, right? Then you won't detect it with the interferometer because there's not an actual force acting on the Earth. It's not physically pulling it around the sun from the Earth. There is no actual force pulling us in a curved path. We're actually just free falling without a force acting upon us in a straight path. Therefore, the interferometer could not detect it. Okay? So now that's even more details than that. You have contraction and many other things, and we'll get into that in a second. I guess it's going to be kind of a late stream. And so then the last question here, knowing that Einstein had to replace Newton for this to be explained, is if relativity is required to explain Michelson-Morley by explaining that the orbit of the Earth cannot be detected, would a consistent detection of motion falsify heliocentrism?
I would say no.
Go ahead.
Do that question the very end of it one more time.
If relativity is required to explain Michelson-Morley by explaining that the orbit of the Earth cannot be detected, would a consistent detection of motion falsify heliocentrism?
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
Wow.
Well, no, wouldn't it just falsify the guy that said it was undetectable?
Well, no, because he's saying that it's going in a straight path and it can't be detected. So if you could consistently detect it, then I would say yeah, right?
Yeah. Either it's going in a straight path or a curved path.
Yeah.
And
which first off, that is just silly and ridiculous. I don't know. Like I had no idea that what I was believing in, that we're believing that we're literally free falling in a curved path. It's like that. Honest to God, if I'm going to be honest, that sounds made up.
It gets much worse.
Like that's just ridiculous.
It gets worse.
It's dumb. Like who? Like I never knew that was what the globe actually believes, and that's what I believed, and I didn't even know that shit. Like I'm supposed to believe that we're free falling around the sun, and that's why we can't. That sounds just made up.
Right? You tell me I believe
that's ridiculous.
Better not be me.
Yeah. But I do, apparently. Like I didn't know that. I didn't even know that that's what I believed, you know?
How do you feel about that belief though?
Well, I feel like that I'm being fucking bullshitted. Like I just don't understand. Like, where did you come up with that? Like, show me how you prove that we are free falling, curving around the sun. It sounds so ridiculous. I want to know how you know that. You know what I mean? That's where I'm at with that. It's like
it says it.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, the answer is because that has to be happening to explain the test, or the Earth is stationary. That is the only answer.
They start every answer with, "Well, the Earth must be moving." So
exactly. Now we can actually begin to integrate Einstein's direct quotes about this to give you some context and give the audience some context as to why. But let me pop a Discord on here. Go ahead.
So one of the things that I had done is I just kind of dove down many different conspiracies, you know, just kind of went down each and every one of these rabbit holes. And if you guys have not done that yet, I would highly recommend you do it, because it is pretty enlightening to see how much actual evidence that they have. You got to realize that governmental archives, like classified documents, take like 50, 60 years, and then they're released. And then that stuff people get a hold of, and then they show all the evidence of many, many, many things that people call conspiracy theories and say that they're false. But if you look into them, you will see that there is a lot of evidence that show that a lot of these things are very true. Then I decided, well, what is about this flat Earth? Like, what is this? Like, why is there? I looked it up. It was like some odd million, some odd people believe it. I'm like, there's got to be something to it. And one of the first things I realized is that they don't believe that we're on a flat disk in space. They don't make any claim in any shape, way, or form of what the Earth actually looks like. In fact, all they've done is look at the current claims and then realize that we're more or less being lied to, that everything that they've shown doesn't seem to be what they're telling us to be true. There is no actual claim. So like everybody comes, attacks them and says like, what is your model? What is your model? They've never actually claimed to have a model. Like they're like, what are you talking about? All they're saying is that what you're telling me is BS. And I really, really, really like the analogy that you used with the adoption papers. Like that pretty much sums up every single argument that I've ever seen. Like they're showing the evidence, and then they just turn around and be like, oh yeah, well, I don't believe it until you show me what we actually live on. And it's like, wait a second, like really? Like that's ridiculous. You wouldn't do that if I proved that my parents were my parents. Why are you doing that now? And even after that is explained, it'll be done again.
All right. So you see that, do you?
Yeah, it is pretty crazy, man. It's pretty nostalgic to hear someone else go through it.
Right.
So I really think that, like, honestly, like one of the key factors is they need to dive down something that maybe they could wrap their head around. Like look at Pizzagate or something like that, or something that you might be able to like, okay, maybe this is what's going on. Like, and then you start diving down the Jesuits, diving down the Khazarians.
Keep it somewhat kosher, bro, because I'm on YouTube right now.
No, go ahead, do your thing. Nope, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just on YouTube. You got to be careful.
No, oh, gotcha. I don't do YouTube anymore.
Yeah,
I only do
you.
Rumble and yeah. I'm sorry.
You're cool. You're cool, bro. You're cool. So yeah. I guess what I'm gonna do is pull up some of the papers. So I don't know if Toby or Alan or Shane have anything they want to throw in here. I'm gonna pull up Relativity, a Special and General Theory by Albert Einstein, and we'll go through some of that. Point Blank explains these things, and then I'm gonna show you guys some of the quotes from Einstein as well about, say, Dayton Miller and these different things, to really make sure we drive this point home. But, Jesse said no to the final question, and a quick reminder to the question here is, it is basically if relativity was required to save the heliocentric model by in terms of Michelson Morley, by claiming that the Earth's orbit cannot be detected, then would a consistent detection of motion falsify heliocentrism? Now, let's just pause. Let's remove heliocentrism, because I know that's just such a trigger. If you finish any question with falsify the globe or falsify heliocentrism, there's a group of people out there that are physically incapable of saying yes. You know what I'm saying? So, because when they hear like, do you agree that would falsify the globe, or do you agree that would falsify heliocentrism? Like they just can't say yes to that no matter what. Like just for some reason, just like throwing out a yes to the possibility of it existing, like is terrifying for them or something. I don't know.
We noted that we do that all the time if we're playing a hypothetical, right? If we think it will falsify, we'll just straight up admit it and continue the exchange. It's not like...
Yeah, exactly. So we'll just say, if relativity was required to explain the results of Michelson-Morley by claiming that the Earth's orbit could not be detected, then would a consistent detection of motion falsify relativity?
It should only be a yes. There shouldn't be a think or a thought.
Yeah, it has to be a yes. Like that. There's no ways around it.
I know, it just seems so simple to me. It's like wild.
And it is, dude. Like you put it to the point where a 5-year-old can understand this crap. I mean, sorry.
But
Put it to a point where any other answer is dishonest. So it's an interesting tact. Which way will you choose, Jesse?
Well, I mean, just because a guy said that something couldn't be done and then later, if it were proved to be possible to do it, that meant he was wrong in saying that. That doesn't mean that doesn't debunk heliocentrism.
I said relativity.
Nothing.
I
Really?
preemptively knew you were going to do that, so I
Go back to
changed it.
slide-
Wait. I changed it to relativity, and what I mind. No, I just changed it. I said, dude, are you like not listening? Maybe, right? Like, I'm going to repeat. Please listen. I said,
So what was the question when I read it?
oh, it was heliocentrism. But then I just got through explaining that anytime you ask a question that ends with, do you agree that would falsify the globe? Or do you agree that would falsify heliocentrism? People start shorting out and they just can't say yes no matter what. So let's just take heliocentrism out for a second, and we're going to replace it with the word relativity. So do you agree that if relativity was required to explain the results of Michelson-Morley by claiming that the Earth's orbit could not be detected, then a consistent detection of motion would falsify relativity?
Oh, well, if a claim is shown to be false, then that would falsify that claim.
There you go. And you notice how even then you couldn't just say yes? Like, why can't you just say yes, right? Like, why? Like, it's bad.
It's all hypothetical because it hasn't been shown.
Oh my gosh, how is he not being bad faith at this point, right? Like,
I guess if you cover your eyes, then you can say it wasn't shown to you, I guess.
Yeah, but wait, before you even take the bait on that, it's like, it's a hypothetical preface. If relativity was required to explain Michelson-Morley by claiming the orbit of the Earth could not be detected, but there was a consistent detection of motion, would that falsify relativity? Well, it's just hypothetical. It hasn't been done yet. I know, that's why it has a hypothetical preface. Right? Like, geez, Louise. Okay. But do Shane, Toby, or Alan have anything they want to throw in on this, or any little side note? Because I'm about to pull up some of these quotes and stuff, and then we'll go through them.
Yeah, we got the paper, we got the quotes. This has been one of the more enlightening, I think, exchanges, because this is the experiment that we talk about the most, that is most important, that is most frequently denied, miscategorized, misidentified, and lied about. So this is why, everyone, right? If you want to see why, it's because nothing that they told you about it is right, and because it has these huge implications that people can't even say out loud. So, hey, thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah. I think it's very telling, right? Like, and I will say, I think that this approach is going to be fruitful going forward, not just with this specific topic per se, right? But understanding, well, you kind of have to understand what you're dealing with. If you ever do corner certain people defending the globe into a corner, what are they going to do? They're going to immediately start obfuscating, diverting, trying to twist your point, start trying to ask you questions and try to get a gotcha on you and all this crazy stuff. So you have to actually require like honest, good faith interaction with binary questions sequentially placed in such a way that it leads to the inevitability of the logical conclusion that they're trying to avoid.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Except it's going to require a different approach, right? If they're currently using the tactic of whatever, not answering, not doing, then it'll work. You have to trap them with, if you're currently selectively employing one piece of evidence, let's get you to agree to the secondary one before we have you agree to the primary. That's beautiful, right? That's flawless.
Yeah, I mean, I think an audience member can see when people are doing that. It makes it much more like clear to see, right? I guess is the idea. Alan, what's up, bro? I see you were about to say something.
Yo, what's up? Yeah, Michelson, Gale Pearson, man, what a great subject. So last week, I think it was on this show too, that I mentioned I came across the relativistic solution for it being in regards to the magnetic field, giving it a boost and all that stuff. Well, that was an inaccurate analysis. I read over the actual derivation for it in the paper. There was nothing of that. There was no magnetic field mentioned in there. So full retract on that as the mechanism for the relativistic derivation. But I want to quickly go over what they did actually say, because it's far more interesting.
Yeah, so, go ahead, brother.
So if you got a minute, am I able to screen share on this?
Yes.
Or is it just okay? Because there's no option to.
Oh, I don't know.
If he stops, you can share.
Oh,
Okay.
if it, yeah, will it mess with your show though, or no?
No.
Okay, cool.